Hey folks, how you doing? It's Friday, June 6th, 2025. It's of course the anniversary of D-Day. So chapeau to all our heroes that gave so much, so many gave all on that fateful day when the Allied forces landed in Normandy and began to take back the European continent from the Nazis of the Third Reich in Germany, right? So that was June 6th, 1944. And so many people gave their lives that day to fight for freedom and to defend the freedom that we cherish dearly and to liberate the so many millions of people who had been basically oppressed by the Nazis for all the years that they were in power and had conquered Western Europe and other parts of the world, like parts of North Africa, for example. And as they pushed into Eastern Europe, Poland and Czechoslovakia, of course, they conquered earlier in the war. Sorry. And so on this day, we remember the heroes who fought, who fell, who gave it their all to free us from those Nazi bastards. And on this day, June 6th of 2025, another thing that prizes freedom is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, at least the real decentralized ones. And people who are wondering what's going on in the market, on the crypto market, well, Bitcoin did come down nicely yesterday from, I think the high of the day was around 106 grand or something. Came down very nicely. And in the last 4-hour candle of the day, tapped the 100K range, somewhere in there, 100,000 and something. If you look at where it landed, I think it fell pretty much exactly on a daily buy level of VRE, right around there. And there it found some buy pressure. It began to walk up a little bit for the remainder of that 4-hour candle. And then so far on this day, it has also been walking up nicely, at least the last I looked at it. So for the first 4-hour candle of the day, it was walking up, and then the beginning of the second 4-hour candle, I saw it also walking up a little. And who knows, it may have already found some sell pressure by the time I get back to my machines. But it was looking, looking okay. If you look at the 2-hour time frame, you can see that at that dip yesterday, or the end of the 5th of June candle, the asset on the 2-hour time frame had dropped past the 3 STDEV down bands of both the 3012 RMLR and the 1110 RMLR. And once they stopped doing that for a couple of candles, well, the assets entered mean reversion. And last I looked, it was really close to completing the mean reversion to the 1110 RMLR. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't know. I didn't look at the screen to see it happen, but I saw that it was very, very close. Practically was right on it. Frankly, if I'd have been in a long in the overnights instead of sleeping, for example, right, I would have taken profit already where I saw it because it was practically at that RMLR. Now, that said, it's still in the mean reversion to the 3012 RMLR, which of course it could complete going up, down, or sideways. And that's why I would take the profit if it hit the 1110 RMLR and then re-enter a position if I saw that it was clear which way it was going, up, down, or sideways. That's because why should you re-enter a position if it's not clear where it's going? Now, if I, scanned the different time frames and thought, oh, you know what, it completed this RMLR mean reversion, but it definitely looks like it's going to continue. So yeah, maybe I would stick in it, the position if I was sitting at my trading desk the whole time. Of course, I'm not, obviously. Other things to do. So I would not be in a position right now because I don't leave positions open like that. Now, What does that mean for you? Well, that means for you, if you're looking at the asset and you're thinking to yourself, is it going to go up, down, or sideways? And you're looking, for example, at the 2-hour time frame, and it still hasn't completed the mean reversion to the 30-12 RMLR, then you could look at where the 3 STW down band is and where the RMLR itself is, and use those as guideposts, right? Take profit areas, exit areas, etc. So that's, or even entry areas. If you didn't get in it and if it makes a sudden move close to the 3 STW down band again, right? It probably won't touch it, but if it moves down there quickly, or even not quickly, but just generally moves down there, and you're not in a short to it, and you want to get back in the long because you think it's going to go back up, to close it on the upside, well, then you could enter on the long when it gets as close as you think it's going to get, as close as the indications indicate it's going to get. You could long from, wherever it's going to bottom out before it starts to revert to that, starts to move back towards that 30-12 to the upside. But in the meantime, if it is going to go down, why not be in a short towards it? And likewise, if it is just going to continue to run up to it, why not be in a long to it? And if it's just going to go sideways, well, let it play out sideways and look at lower time frames, because you'll see lots of motion. Like, yeah, the 2-hour may look like it's going sideways. If Bitcoin's only going back and forth 0.25% to 0.5% every 2-hour time frame, typically it's not, but let's just say it is, right? Then, in 0.25% or 0.5%, if you look inside of that candle, you look lower on the lower time frames, like the 15-minute and lower, you'll see it's got a lot of little hills and valleys inside of that 2-hour time frame, right? So it can go up and down quite a lot relatively, even though it might only be going up 0.25% or 0.5% and down another 0.25% or 0.5%. It's back and forth, back and forth. You stack those up over a couple hours, that's already a couple percent in more than the asset has done in total, right? Because it doesn't just go up and stay there or go down and stay there. No, it's constantly moving back and forth, back and forth. So what is Bitcoin likely to do now that it's found that buy pressure and it still has the mean reversions to complete? Well, it is likely to complete those mean reversions, up, down, or sideways. Are there targets to the upside? Yeah, there sure are. Could it take half the weekend or more to complete those mean reversions? It could. It certainly could. Does it mean it has to? Not necessarily. I mean, it is a Friday. It is, early June, starting to warm up, and people are starting to enjoy the outdoor weather. But, people are still working, and the markets are still working. So traders are still trading, and it's not a holiday. So expect that it will basically be a busy day, and expect that there'll be some nice volatility today, especially when the traditional markets open up, especially after all that face melting content that was happening on X last night and people freaking out, and hilarious to see how a few simple tweets. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we don't trade the news. That's a joke, right? But it is funny how people react to news, right? Or not even news. They react to things they see in their social media feeds, like which are promulgated by the owner of the social media network. Anything that the guy says will get seen by hundreds of millions of people because he owns the network and he boosts his own messages to everyone, right? If he can make sure that everyone sees it, and he does. I'm sorry, but if I retweeted the exact same material that he retweeted before he did, and I put in the exact same words that he did, if he posted something that says interesting or whatever, one of these typical one-word tweets, and it's the exact same content that he posts, whose tweet is going to get more views, even though mine was first? Okay, it goes to show you, right? It doesn't have a lot to do with content quality. It really doesn't. You think that content quality is what matters? You really don't understand social media. I'm sorry, right? You need to be, first of all, controversial. You need to be loud and obnoxious. Okay. You may not like that. I sure don't, but that's reality, right? I find it, frankly, a little bit despicable, childish, immature, very juvenile. Um, but that's what you get when you are dealing with social media, right? Social media, what drives traffic? It has always been this way, and it's only gotten worse with the advent of algorithms and their advancement over the years. What gets views is controversy. That's it. You want to be visible in social media. Everyone says, "Yeah, make a great product." It's true. You got to make a great product. You got to make them a great service. You got to do all this stuff. But what actually gets eyeballs? Because if you have 10 great products and they're all identical in terms of what they offer and what they, there's no differentiator, and then you put them out on social media, which one do you think is going to get the most views? The answer is you don't even have to. I don't have to give you examples, right? It's always going to be the one that's more controversial. Always. Now, does that mean that that one is necessarily going to be the one that generates the most sales or revenues or profits? Not necessarily, but it's a huge boost to the efforts of the marketing of that. Again, whether you like it or not, right? You may not like it. I don't, but it's a fact. If you want to be exposed, like as a content creator, yeah. If you want to have a following, you need some controversy. Look at Red Bull. Okay, classic example. Red Bull makes extreme sports content for the web. They make shorts and they make long videos that are extreme sports. Now you may say, well, that's not very controversial, but actually it is. If you go back to when they began doing this stuff, and you go back years before that, right, when the X Games were created, the X Games are for? You know why they're called the X Games? They're called the X Games because they're considered extreme sports. Do you know why they're considered extreme sports? Because there's a lot of controversy baked in. The controversy is baked into A, whether or not they're even sports. They might just be games. They're not really sports. It's arguable, whatever. Some of them are clearly sports, right? And B, they're controversial because of the level of risk. They're considered sometimes unsafe, or the level of controversy, like beef between the athletes, because it gets very personal over nonsense. Right? C, there's a lot of style issues, which are very subjective, not objective, and that makes it not very sportsmanlike, because you can be judged on subjective things, which, of course they do all the time in things like, ice skating and, whatever they call it, gymnastics, things like that, where there's subjective judgments. So it's the same thing, right? Extreme sports, extreme games were considered very subjective and therefore not very not entirely pure sports. So they were controversial, and so that's how they got a lot of eyeballs. Absolutely, they're in the sports world with the extreme sports or X Games when they first started. Yes, and that's how they got eyeballs, and that's how they built the brand, and that's why they've been around for like 30 years. Versus, social media's been around for a good now 20 years or so, operating on the same principles, right? Of extreme controversy. It's show me that There's no difference. So anyway, that is that. Could go look at the charts right now, but I think you guys have had enough. Keep an eye on the VEPS targets. Don't trade high time in low time frame VEPS. You have a strategic, measurable, quantitative. Practically every other trader that uses traditional TA and other nonsense, chart art, news, goofiness, gossip, rumors. None of that stuff matters. None of that stuff is going to score you wins. That's why I highly recommend you trade with the VEPS on low time frames. And if you don't know how to trade the VEPS, come and learn for free in the Alpha Trading Discord. It's at alphatradinghq.com/Discord. And when you do that, you can also get free access to the Volatility Starter Pack, which you just do by going into the Request Support channel and clicking the Create Ticket button. And then you just say, I want my free access to the Volatility Starter Pack, and you tell us your TradingView username in that same ticket. And voila, presto, you get your access magically for free. And you can keep your tools for free and learn how to trade with us as long as you're a member of our Discord, which is free. You get to keep your access to the tools. So that's it. Have fun, and remember, we got our live stream Monday through Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. And obviously, by the way, if you want like the professional level tools, the pro, you can do that. Just go into the Shop Alpha channel inside of the Alpha Trading Discord. And if you want something like private tutoring, well, we have private tutoring where you get a bunch of one-on-one sessions and you get all the access to the tools for a year. It's a hell of a bargain. It's a ridiculously low price, to be perfectly honest. Even when it's not right now, it's an amazing price. You get a whole year of access plus 12 sessions, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. DM access to your tutor, and some goodies that are tossed in as well along the way. So anyway, go and check it out. See you guys in the live stream. And again, if you guys want to know, let's just have a quick look since I am now in front of the machine again. Yeah, for now, the asset does continue to look okay to the upside, and it has gone up pretty nicely in the last hour or so since I wasn't here, maybe a 0.5% or a third of a percent. Yeah, about third of a point since the beginning of the 4-hour candle. Right? Yeah, a little bit more, almost 0.4%. Yeah, and it remains in mean reversion. It has completed the mean reversion to the 2-hour candle on the 1110 RMLR, but it does remain in mean reversion to the 3012, which is currently up at around 104, almost 104 and a half. Is it 104 and a half? No, 105.383. 105.383. That's where it currently is. That said, it is generally moving down over the next 30 or so candles, over most of the next 30 candles until like Sunday. So, it could meet it anywhere from where it is now, or it could meet it sideways by sometime on Sunday or even further down on Sunday. Just keep that in mind. Yep. All right, that's going to do it for now, folks. Catch you guys later. Peace. Happy trading.